Welcome back. It has been another turbulent week for the Electoral Commission, IEBC, barely 48 hours after cancelling a 3.8 billion shilling election management system tender, citing limited time and budget constraints. IEBC was back in the news with an announcement it had single-sourced a firm to deliver the same system. Predictably, the developments have attracted suspicions across the political divide amid claims of corruption deals and a larger scheme to undermine the integrity of the August elections. And concerns have been raised once again on the state of preparedness of the Commission ahead of the August elections. We talked to electoral experts in studio tonight. Mule Musau, National Coordinator, Election Observation Group, or ILOG, and we also have Felix Odhiambo, who's the Executive Director, Electoral Law and Governance Institute in Africa. Thank you both for making time for us tonight. Keep talking to us. The hashtag is Gameplan2017 on Twitter. You can also text us on 22422. I'll start by asking that question. Do you think IEBC is prepared for this election thus far? I'll start with you, Felix.
No. If elections were to be held today, then I can tell you without any fear of contradiction that IEBC is not prepared to hold the elections. But I think it should be stated right at the outset that it's not only the responsibility of the IEBC to make sure that and to put in place mechanisms to guarantee a credible process in 2017. But the point is that IEBC has that sacred responsibility to give expression to the sovereign right of the people of this country, and IEBC must understand that their counterparts in other countries, Ghana in particular, faced with the serious competitive elections and stiff challenges, was able to deliver. IEBC has not done anything over the last few weeks to assure the country that they are capable of delivering a credible elections, and I think time is running out, and it's incumbent upon IEBC to be able to ensure that they put in place mechanisms to guarantee a credible process.
Mule, let me get your response on that. I will come to the specifics shortly. Mule.
Yeah. Well, I agree with Felix. The fact that you know, if elections were to be called today, how many things are outstanding at the moment? We still have a voter register that has to be cleaned. We are now talking about integrated electronic system, which also has to be in place by based on the timelines that we have by the April 10th. And again, we are now within again another very not very clear procurement process as far as that is concerned. We have political parties that are having their nominations again within the next 2 weeks, and nobody seems to be very clear whether this is not going to be a repeat of what we had in 2013, the shambolic elections or nomination process that we had. So if you look at what is remaining for us to be very clear about holding our elections on the 8th of August this coming in this year, I think we're still very far from being ready.
Right. So the Commission, I mean, what we've been talking about, cancelled the Kenya Integrated Electoral Management System tender, then awarded it to Gemalto after the company successfully appealed to the Public Administrative Review Board, and then it cancelled the tender again. Recently, that is last week, we saw them saying they are single sourcing from Saffron Identity and Security, a company that failed during the technical evaluation according to IEBC. This does not look good for IEBC, does it?
It doesn't, and I think IEBC more than anybody else should have remembered how we got into where we are right now insofar as the integration of technology is concerned. It should not be lost on the country that this was a political consensus negotiated by the joint bipartisan committee of parliament, the joint parliamentary select committee, that hammered out this deal and unlocked the stalemate that we were faced with and mass protest. At that time, there was serious low public confidence in the electoral process. But most fundamentally, there was serious low confidence on the Electoral Commission. In fact, the IEBC approval rating as of December of last year was 36%. Now, the bipartisan Joint Parliamentary Committee gave hope and optimism on the electoral process and the new look IEBC, and that is how Chebukati Commission came into being. But Hussein, the regret is that there is systematic effort by the two leading political formation, Jubilee and CORD, and the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to undermine that bipartisan spirit.
You say it's coming from all
sides, and this is how. Soon after that, after the passage of the recommendation, the Jubilee through the Duale sponsored a bill to Parliament that actually amended the Elections Act. CORD, NASA on its part, has also been running to court and litigating on every issue, including those that can actually be negotiated
out of court.
But IEBC most fundamentally.
So whether or not, I mean, on this matter of the tender for, I mean, the electoral system technology, when NASA went to court, it was because of procurement. That was aside from procurement. That you was don't blame IEBC.
No, that was with
regard to IEBC for that.
No, I do blame IEBC, and I'm getting into IEBC. First of all, it was IEBC that approached the Parliamentary Committee on Justice to cast doubts on the implementation and integration of the technology. That was the genesis of the Dual Amendment Bill, and that was passed into Parliament. But now, getting into what IEBC did last week, 2013 is repeating itself once again. Saffron, don't forget, is a company that procured the BVR. And in 2013, it was not at the initial technical stages of evaluation. In 2017, Saffron participated in for the procurement of the KIMS, the technology integration. And Saffron was knocked down at the initial stage on technical grounds. And then IEBC gave 3 grounds for knocking out Gemalto. One was cost, that the price had gone up.
Right.
Secondly was the litigation that they said that had eaten on the timelines. And finally they said that the voter registration process has been completed and that therefore there is an issue.
No longer there.
Now the question is, on that particular third ground, IEBC unilaterally altered the specification in a violation of the negotiation by the Joint Parliamentary Committee. It is not up to the IEBC to change specification on these gadgets. IEBC should borrow a leaf from the Electoral Commission of Ghana. Every time a major aspect of the electoral process is underway, the Electoral Commission of Ghana must involve the Inter-Parties Advisory Committee, including on procurement and on the printing of ballot papers and in the site visit where they are done. Now, IEBC cannot on its own change the specification, and IEBC is there was no truth to the fact that there was litigation. In fact, there was no pending litigation on the procurement of integrated technology.
Right.
And most fundamentally, the matter, of course, I think it should also be appreciated. In 2013, the budget for BVR was 3 billion shillings. When government-to-government tender happened and it was awarded to Saffron Mofo, the cost went to over 7 billion shillings. 3 times, more than 2 times the price that Mofo supplied. And so the question, and even with if you look at the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act, the cost is against the market price and not the budget. And the IEBC was in violation of this legislation.
Well,
I mean, from what he's saying and what has been said over the last few days since they cancelled this tender again and decided to single source from Saffron, we are expecting litigations again in terms of procurement. I mean, the process is again open to litigations, isn't it?
Yes. From where I sit, there are 2 issues that keep coming up. First, and we have talked with IEBC over this issue, that there is a need for anticipation. As an electoral commission, they need to anticipate that there are going to be people are going to move to court. You know, because we are in a very sensitive area. So the minute you leave room for people to, you allow people to be able to run to court, like already now we're seeing a process which I am very sure in the next 1 week or so, somebody is going to be going to court and say, no, we need to stop this. So anticipation is key if you want to build boost confidence. The other way of boosting confidence, and I think Felix has just alluded to it, is that you want to involve your stakeholders, because you're coming from a discredited past. This is a people process. The bipartisan approach which was used last year for us to be able to sit down and be able to come up with proposals about how to move forward needs to be embraced every next step until we get to that election. If we're not going to involve all these stakeholders, then they are going to start casting aspersions, and that becomes a major risk. Because we saw last year, I mean, we know even from the Kriegler report that we're not supposed to be changing our commission, even changing laws within a year to the election, because there's no sobriety around that time. Nevertheless, we have done those things. We've changed our commission, and now even changing some of the laws late in the day. We had the so-called midnight laws the last time around, because we were doing things at the last minute. We don't want these things to happen now. And if they must happen, then the process must be very participatory, very transparent, and very open.
And you don't think IEBC have been doing that?
I think there's a problem as far as that is concerned.
Right. I mean, in light of the time constraints that they have cited, IEBC themselves, the Commission itself has cited time constraints. From your experience, knowing that we need to have the Kenya Integrated Electoral Management System by 10th of April, that is the deadline according to the law, 120 days before the date of the election. Do you think we'll have this electronic system in place? Also to you.
I think ideally, even 60 days, the technology can still be put in place and be operational.
So it was supposed to be tested.
It was supposed to be tested
before the election.
60 days to the elections and things like that.
Yeah.
Granted, we have lost time, but the fundamental question is, what is the alternative? Can this country afford to go to 2017 elections without technology? I've said in this forum several times here on Citizen TV that the best way to give effect to the Constitution of Kenya and the best way to guarantee a credible process that's a free, fair, verifiable and accurate is to introduce technology for the purposes of 2017. Because there are so many problems, challenges with our elections. There is serious problems with voter registration process. Instead of IEBC putting in emphasis and energy towards remedying the problems that were noted in 2013 elections, IEBC is busy taking photos with the Ministry of Education. It's not the responsibility of IEBC to enforce Chapter 6 of the Constitution. It's the responsibility of IEBC to guarantee a credible, free, fair and verifiable process. I'm telling you, I've observed elections across the world and work specifically in Africa. Why technology must work in our context is because, and I've said it in the past, the results that are posted in Luo Nyanza, the entire Mount Kenya region and the Kalenjin Rift Valley of 100% turnout is a fallacy. Even among the most contented citizenry, even among countries that have compulsory voting, no country has 100% turnout. The only way to cure that is to have a mechanism of identifying voters through EVID on election day and a working results transmission system. It worked in Nigeria in 2015, it worked in Ghana in 2016, and that is why these are the Electoral Commission that are regarded to be ahead of their peers and contemporaries in this continent. Now, has IEBC done a lot to live to the aspiration of credible commission? The answer is no.
They have not.
Yeah. Just a quick point in terms of whether this technology is going to be in place in time. One is that, well, unless something has changed in terms of the timelines, and if you're looking at 120 days, then that means that by April 10, we need to have KIMS in place. There's been conflicting information which is coming through from the IEBC that Saflan is supposed to be giving this information or delivering on the systems by May 10th. Now, that of course would now the question in that regard would be, which timelines are we using?
Right.
Are we violating then the electoral timelines which have been set? And then if that is being done, then are we also again looking at possible litigation, which we cannot be able to afford at this particular time?
And at what point did IEBC negotiate with the Safran when the tendering process was with a different company? A day after the cancellation of tender with Gemalto, IEBC went into the media and had agreed with the Safran over the price, which was, by the way, their entire 3.8 billion budget, and had agreed on the new timeline. How did IEBC unilaterally change the timeline over and above and beyond what was negotiated by the bipartisan Joint Parliamentary Committee?
At this juncture, of course, it's important to point out that we invited and we looked for the IEBC chair and the CEO to be part of the show tonight, whether individually or as a panel or in a panel, but they were not available tonight. So, gentlemen, having said all that, what do they need to do? 3 months now, I think 4 months to the election. What do they need to do now?
What they need to do is to concentrate on what I would define as the minimum that is required to guarantee a credible process. Number one is to cure the question surrounding the voter registration process, the voter register. We should be able to go into 2017 when we know that the register that we have is both accurate, verifiable, and is an authoritative role. IEBC cannot afford in 2017 to introduce the reference materials, including the so-called green books, etc. What they need to do is to invite the political parties, because the voter audit, as for all intents and purposes failed, and tell them that we have not agreed on which company is going to audit the register, but we can come up with a mechanism of cleaning up this register so that we go into the next election knowing what the total number of voters in this country. Secondly, IEBC has to ensure that the identification process in terms of the technology that will identify voters on election day works. I've said they in Nigeria, for example, they embarked on a very cumbersome voting process, where in the first half of the day, people had to go through a mandatory vetting through EVIDs to ascertain whether they were registered voters. It was only at the second half of the day that people were allowed to vote, and that election was credible. Finally, the IEBC must invest in results transmission. One of the major failures, the question here, Hussein, is what happens when a voter casts his ballot and the results are declared? That was a problem in 2007, it was a problem in 2013, and things like that. If the IEBC cannot invest, and if we go by the examples of 2007 and 2013, there is absolutely nothing in law that prohibits a political party from and the media organization from coming or setting up a parallel results transmission system. It happened in 2002. Kibaki was declared president of this country on the basis of provisional results as declared by the media. It happened also in 2005 during the referendum.
Okay. Well, from again where I sit, beyond the technology, we expect the IEBC to be able to do a very thorough training for their staff to be able to handle this technology. Then the other issue that I've been very insistent on is a robust engagement of all electoral stakeholders, the political party, the civil society, the media. Everybody is going to have a play in this game. Right. Beyond the IEBC, I also want to say that it's not just the IEBC alone which is in charge of this election. The security department, for instance, we're having political parties happening in the next 2 weeks, and from the looks of it, they may be very violent. If you're going to have any violence before the election, it may be a precursor for a very violent engagement in August. And therefore, all measures must be put in place to ensure that the party elections or the party nominations are held in a very peaceful way, in a credible way, and therefore that attention to the political parties, attention to the security detail, attention to the judiciary, which in my view has actually been one of the best actors. I mean, they've been doing a very good job. About a week ago, they brought in all the state agencies which are concerned with elections, just so that they can be able to put to talk about where they are in terms of their preparedness. But we want everybody, we want all the stakeholders coming out together to take their position in terms of the part that they must play in the coming elections.
Right. That is Mule Musau, who's the National Coordinator, Election Observation Group, and Felix Odhiambo, Executive Director, Electoral Law and Governance Institute in Africa. Thank you so much, both, for making time for us tonight. Keep talking to us. The hashtag is GameTime2017. On Twitter, you can text us on 22422. We're back after this break.